You could feel it the moment the Chargers' pass rush found a home. This wasn't going to be one of those sloppy, close games where a late play saves you. This was a night when the Los Angeles Chargers defense bullied the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, and the result was a 25-10 beatdown that leaves Pittsburgh's hold on the AFC North looking fragile. Start with the obvious. This was a brutal night for Aaron Rodgers. The veteran quarterback, soon to turn 42, looked like a man fighting the clock and the Chargers' rush at the same time. He finished with just 161 passing yards, 2 interceptions, and a 50.6 passer rating. By the fourth quarter, he'd been held to 96 yards before a garbage time touchdown to Roman Wilson padded the box score. That's not the Aaron Rodgers who helped define elite quarterback play for decades. That's a man whose margin for error is tiny, and whose offense right now doesn't give him the margin he needs. It didn't start well. Rodgers retreated into his own end zone under pressure in the first half, and Khalil Mack tracked him down for a safety. That sequence wasn't just an ugly play, it was a tone setter. Rodgers was 7 of 14 for 64 yards at halftime and a passer rating in the low 30s. The Chargers didn't even need to be perfect. They just needed to keep the pressure alive and let Pittsburgh's instincts unravel. And that pressure did more than create negative plays. It turned routine moments into game-changing turnovers. Rodgers threw a pick that sparked a Chargers touchdown late in the first half and made the score 12-3 at halftime. By then, the narrative felt set: a stagnant Steelers offense, an opportunistic Chargers defense, and a game where Pittsburgh never found a rhythm. The Steelers' offensive shortcomings were visible in detail and on the ledger. They couldn't run with consistency. Jaylen Warren had some bright flashes and helped engineer one meaningful drive, but the offense never sustained momentum. The line struggled with protection, which left Rodgers constantly working from a collapsing pocket. That kills timing. Routes break off early, rhythm dies, and even routine third downs become impossible. Watch the film and you see the little things that add up. On a key fourth down late, Rodgers threw to DK Metcalf in the end zone. The ball was underthrown and had no chance. Another pass rattled off Calvin Austin through his hands and into the waiting arms of Dante Jackson. Those plays look small in isolation, but they're the difference between a comeback and a washout. When your offensive line can't buy your quarterback 2 extra steps, you stop winning those thin margin plays. Credit the Chargers where it's due. Justin Herbert and his playmakers did what good teams do. They took advantage of small windows and turned them into momentum. Herbert hit Ladd McConkey on a 58-yard beauty on a tight window throw that changed the game's geometry. Kamani Vidal's touchdown run finished drives and kept Pittsburgh on its heels. Los Angeles attacked with speed, precision, and pressure up front. When the pocket collapsed, their playmakers finished. Where this game gets worrying for the Steelers isn't just the result, but the signal it sends about roster construction and in-season moves, or the lack of them. Pittsburgh did almost nothing at the trade deadline to inject youth, speed, or protection into an offense that now looks stale. A reliance on short, controlled passes to tight ends and checkdowns is a low-variance strategy when it works. When it doesn't, when the defense takes away the yards after the catch and the line gets pushed, you end up with a 10-point night and a long film room lecture. You can see the larger problem. Rodgers isn't a mobile quarterback who can escape pressure and improvise for chunks of yardage anymore. He's a cerebral passer who needs time and clean mechanics. The Steelers are giving him neither consistently. That's the coaching and roster problem, married to an aging elite signal caller's limitations. Defensively, the Steelers were okay early, but got carved when it mattered most. The safety and spacing issues on McConkey's big play were a teachable moment, and linebackers struggled to close on rushers. Special teams and situational choices didn't help. Missed opportunities, field position mistakes, and the sense that Pittsburgh wasn't forcing Los Angeles into uncomfortable spots. If you want a silver lining, it's this: the Steelers are still technically atop the AFC North. That's thanks to earlier wins when the team executed. But the Ravens are breathing down their necks. And if Pittsburgh keeps this brand of offense, an aging quarterback with diminished protection and a lack of explosive playmakers, Baltimore is exactly the kind of team that'll make them pay long term. Immediate fixes are boring but necessary. First, protect the quarterback. Slide protections, chip blitz pickups, and tighter calls from the line. If the front can't be fixed quickly via personnel, scheme around it. Two-step drops, quick slants, and timed outs reduce reliance on a lasting pocket. Second, diversify the vertical game. You don't need a roster full of burners, but you need more than one deep threat to stretch defenses and create space for the intermediate game. Third, get after the ball. Turnovers change games, and a defense that can flip momentum keeps you competitive even when the offense sputters. Longer term, the Steelers must ask structural questions. Who are we building around? Is it a veteran quarterback on the back nine who needs a rebuilt line and younger receiving talent? Or is it time to consider a generational pivot? Those aren't quick decisions, but this season's fragility accelerates the timeline. From a locker room standpoint, this is the kind of loss that either deepens character or magnifies fractures. Coach stability, veteran leadership, and clarity in roles are the only things that will keep the ship from looking lost. Rodgers, as the elder statesman, can steady the room, but he also needs the team around him to meet him halfway. Right now, it feels like the team isn't doing enough of that work. The takeaway? The Steelers are at a crossroads. A win is a win, but a 25-10 loss in a game they needed to protect the division lead is a warning shot. Aaron Rodgers had a night to forget. The offense was blunt, protection porous, and the Chargers opportunistic. If Pittsburgh wants to keep the division, they'll need immediate schematic fixes, possible roster injections, and more consistent play from the supporting cast. Otherwise, the Baltimore Ravens and the rest of the AFC will turn this vulnerability into a long-term problem. Final image, a pocket collapsing in slow motion, Aaron Rodgers' face set against a stadium light, a Chargers defender bearing down, and the scoreboard ticking toward a road team victory. It's a reminder that in this league, age, offensive support, and protection converge into fate. Tonight, the Chargers made the Steelers pay for not having all three. What if I told you a season can smell like a mystery before the second quarter ends? You walk into a stadium expecting theater, and instead you get a slow, quiet unraveling. Not catastrophic, not dramatic, just the kind of night where one or two small things ripple until they become the story. That's what happened in Los Angeles. The Chargers walked away 25-10, and the Steelers left with something heavier than a loss. A question mark. The game started with a cruel little punctuation mark. Aaron Rodgers, who spent his career bending time and expectation, retreated into his own end zone under pressure, and the universe replied with a safety. Khalil Mack brought him down, and for a moment you could feel an old film strip flicker. The polished pocket, the veteran cool, the sudden human cost of being chased. It was only an early point swing, but it set the tone. The kind of tone where panic doesn't explode. It seeps. Look, Rodgers isn't a joke. He's a Hall of Famer who's reinvented himself more times than most teams change playbooks. But tonight, he looked like a man slightly out of rhythm with his tools. The numbers are ugly. 16 of 31, 161 yards, 2 picks, a passer rating that felt like a throwback to a night you forget. One bad read became another, and the pressure started doing its slow work. The charge isn't that he's been bad all season. The charge is that he's human. He's 42 in a league built for speed and snap decisions, and even the greats find their reflexes taxed when the hits keep coming. Those hits mattered. 6 sacks on the night. The Chargers didn't need to be spectacular. They needed to be consistent. Pressure breeds errors. Errors turned into a turnover and then a touchdown for Ladd McConkey just before halftime, and suddenly momentum is wearing a new uniform. The Steelers moved like they were trying to remember lines in a play they'd rehearsed only once. The offense had no reliable rhythm, no explosive plays, and the magic that usually finds a way felt absent. You could point to roster construction. The deadline came and went with the Steelers standing pat. No big acquisitions, no aggressive moves to bolster a suspect receiving core. It's the kind of quiet decision that doesn't headline today, but echoes all season. When you don't add weapons, when you don't fortify the trenches, the pressure on your quarterback increases and the offense shrinks into safer, shorter throws. That's where the Steelers live now. A conservative offense that's easy to scheme against. And yet, This wasn't a total collapse. Jalen Warren carved small, important gains. He gave them life on a few drives. Chris Boswell even managed a 59-yard field goal, a bright spot that briefly flipped the static into noise. But moments are expensive currency. They buy you seconds, not solutions. When those seconds don't stack into sustained drives, the scoreboard becomes a ledger of missed opportunities. The Chargers, meanwhile, were efficient. Justin Herbert didn't have to be a magician. He just had to be accurate and opportunistic. The big play that broke the game open, a 58-yard shot to McConkey, was textbook. Pressure, space, one throw that asked the defense a question it couldn't answer. And Kamani Vidal finishing with a score? That's the product of keeping drives alive, converting opportunities, and letting simple plays grow into the kind of advantage that proves unshakable. There's a psychological angle here that matters. Aaron Rodgers has always been a ledger with long, delicious annotations. You remember the comebacks, the late-game poetry. But legend doesn't suspend accountability. Fans are patient with history, then suddenly impatient with decline. The silence in Heinz Field after a game like this would feel different than the silence at SoFi because expectations are heavy in Pittsburgh.